When we say that somebody has failed, what do we really mean? At the end of this video, you should be able to understand what we mean by fail and failure. I think it's better understood. The concept is better understood by a simple example. Let's take, for instance, if a person is running a 100-meter race. At the end of 50 meters, the person falls down. He has not completed the race. He has not achieved his objective. Two things happen here. The person could either remain there and refuse to continue the race, or he could stand up, dust himself, and continue the race. If he decides to remain there, the person has failed. Is now a failure. And that is the mentality of a loser. But if he decides to continue the race, the person is a winner. Even though he fell down, he stood up and continued on the race till the end. That is how one can differentiate between a failed person and a failure. They are basically two different things. It's either the person has failed or the person is a failure. If the person decides to continue and finish the race, the person has a winner mindset or a winner's mindset. What I'm trying to say is, if the person stands up and continues the race and finishes the 100 meters race, that person has a winner's mindset. But if he decides to abandon that race at that point, then the person is a loser. He has a loser's mindset. So one should be able to differentiate between these two. A winner, somebody who has a winner's mindset, and somebody who has a loser's mindset. Now, I will give an example with a story I had about some businessmen back in Chicago many years back. A fire came and consumed all their shops. So the next morning, these men came. They sat together and we are looking at the disaster. All the other men except one said they were going to leave the business. They are not going to continue. But one of them, who has a winner's mindset, looked at the whole thing and said that he's not quitting. That at that particular place where this thing happened, he's going to build another business. And truly, he went on to build a business that had branches all over the United States. That is how you know or differentiate a winner from a loser. Another example is from a personal experience. I was involved in a professional exam where accountancy was one of the subjects to be done. You know, when you are taking such exams, or when you are taking a paper that involves accountancy, for those of you who are accountants, when you are taking a paper that involves accountancy, you have to solve problems. It's problem-solving paper. So in preparing for this paper, the first time, I was not solving problems. I was busy reading like every other subject. At the end of the day, I could not make the papers. So people began to tell me, people who have gone that route before, began to tell me what I have done wrong. That I should have gotten myself involved in problem solving instead of just reading accountancy like we do some other subjects. So what happened was, I dusted myself. I stood up, dusted myself, and set goals for myself again. But this time around, I knew what the problem was, and I took care of it. In this other preparation, I solved a lot of problems in accountancy, and at the end of the day, I was able to come out with flying colors. I passed the exams with flying colors. Ordinarily, one would have said that he's not going to be interested in doing the subject again, the exams again. But I went ahead and did it. For me, it was a winner's mindset. That is one other way of differentiating between a winner and a loser. The winner will always want to continue until he achieves success, but the loser will give up. It also brings to mind the story of that former British Prime Minister. I think it was Harold Wilson or one of the British Prime Ministers. I can't remember his name now. This guy contested elections to become the British Prime Minister on a number of occasions. I think they said 15 times. I can't quite remember now. He did it over and over and over and again. And at the end of the day, he was able to succeed and eventually became the British Prime Minister. There is also the story of Edison, who invented the light bulb. Before Edison invented the light bulb, he failed over and over again. I think they said he failed about 10,000 times. But he did not give up in spite of the failures. He continued over and over again. And at the end of the day, he was able to invent the electric bulb. Today, we associate the electric bulb with Edison because of his ability to endure, because of his winner mentality. He had a winner mindset. He had a winner's mindset. Otherwise, we wouldn't be using electric, or we may not know electric bulb today. But thanks to him, he was able to carry on and came out with an electric bulb, which we are using today. Now, having known what failure means, having been able to tell us the difference between fail and failure, let us now see how we can cope with failure. For us to cope with failure, there are many ways for us to cope with failure. First of all, you have to accept the fact that you have failed. If you accept the fact that you have failed, then it will lead you into knowing what to do to continue. It's very important that you accept that fact. If you don't accept that fact, then you may just be wasting your time. You also have to remember that failure is not a personal thing. It's not you alone that fails. A lot of people have failed. People will fail. People failed yesterday. They will fail today. And tomorrow, failures will continue. So it is not something that is peculiar to you as an individual. So don't take it personal. Try to see how you can maneuver it, since it is not something that is peculiar to you alone as an individual. Failure can happen to anybody at any time. So you have to see what you can do to ensure that you pick up the bits and pieces that were left behind and move on. That is life. Another way of coping with failure is to accept responsibility for failure. Yes, you have to understand that you were the one that caused it. Don't shift blames. Just see how you can manage the whole thing. Accept that responsibility. Once you have accepted responsibility, you see, if you have a problem, it becomes easier for you to solve when you have known that you have a problem. So now that you know that you are the one that caused this problem, the question now is, what can you do to ameliorate the situation? What can you do to ensure that the problem does not reoccur? Now, in the case of that exam I was telling you about, I accepted responsibility. I knew I was responsible because I did not follow procedure. I knew there were many things I could have done, but I did not do. Eventually, when the results came out, I knew I was responsible because there were things I could have done which I did not do. I learned from my mistake, did what I'm supposed to do, and the next time I sat for the examination, it was plain sailing. I mean, it was smooth sailing. I just passed it, and that was it. That is the benefit of, you accepting responsibility for your failure. Don't think it's somebody else. Don't think it's the lecturer that did it. Don't think it was the kind of books you read. Don't shift responsibility. Accept responsibility and see how you can forge ahead. It's very, very important. Another way of coping with failure is to learn from the experience you've just, gone through. Learn one or two things from what you have just gone through and move ahead, If you don't learn from experience, then it's rather unfortunate. There is no way you can learn. Another way of coping with failure is to provide for losses. Most people don't provide for losses. So when they fail, it can be very devastating. If you don't provide for losses and you fail, it can be very devastating. Let me give you another personal experience. Back in the day, I used to be an ardent fan of a football club. Each time that club is playing, I want to see them win. For me, the club must win at all costs. Anytime they lose, it becomes a problem for me. I just must, I'll be depressed. I may not even eat for 1-2 days because the club side failed to secure victory. Then I began to talk to myself. I began to hear other people saying that it is not the best thing to do. And I thought to myself that, look, you just must provide for losses. When you are in a competition of that nature, you cannot have two winners. One side will win, the other side will lose. Your favorite side cannot be winning every time. So if you have been able to provide for the fact that they may lose, that is what I mean by providing for losses. Then if eventually they lose, well, you know how to manage your life. Life will just go on normally, as against a situation where you did not learn how to provide for losses and they eventually lose in the game. You will be like you are going to die the next day. I even have an experience from a neighbor of mine who went through this kind of problem. Another ardent football follower, he went to watch a match. Actually, before going there, he was not feeling very fine. He had this BP issue. So in the course of watching the match, his club side failed to win. In fact, they lost woefully. And he felt very bad about it. In which, as a result of which, the BP problem was triggered. So when he was coming back from watching the football match, he fell down on the road, and before they could get him to the hospital, he gave up the ghost. So whoever is in any competition of any such should learn how to provide for losses. In fact, in whatever you are doing in life, learn how to provide for losses. If you don't do that, it could be very, very tragic at the end of the day. So another thing you have to do is to think of what to do after, you have failed. Think of setting goals. If you set a goal, when I say setting goal, I don't mean that you should set a goal that is not achievable. If, for instance, you are earning 10,000 and you set a goal that in the next 1 month you are going to start earning 10 million, then you are just fooling yourself. You have to set an achievable goal, a goal you know you can achieve. Otherwise, you end up giving yourself more problems than anticipated. So set a goal that is achievable, a goal you can achieve, and work towards achieving it. It's very, very important if you know you want to cope with failure. Yeah, it's true. You have to learn how to take action. Don't allow the fact that you have lost make you not take action anymore. That reminds me of some persons who have gone through marital problems. They love somebody so much. At the end of the day, relationship got broken up. And they vow, some of them will vow that they will never go into a relationship again. That's a loser's mentality. A winner will find out why the relationship, went bad, and see how they can take care of it, take necessary actions, get into the... it's all about life. There is nothing you can do about it. It happens. It's not like I keep saying, it's not a personal thing. It's not peculiar to a particular person. It's not peculiar to you alone. It could happen to anybody, anytime. But you have a responsibility to make sure you take action to overcome whatever the challenges were. That's the best way, or one of the best ways to cope with, failure. Failure is an emotional thing. Very, very emotional. You have a responsibility to see how you can ride it. Don't let the fear of failure ride you. It could be very disastrous if you allow it to ride you. You have to learn how to ride the fear of failure. If you don't ride it, it will almost kill you. That's the long and short of it all. I saw somebody, collapse and die because of failure. What happened? He had a relationship with somebody. The person decided to pack up the relationship. He became depressed. For many, many months, he was depressed. Eventually, he gave up the ghost. Just because he did not put things in place to ride the emotions of failure. He allowed the emotions of failure to ride him. And that was very, very unfortunate. So, any human being, any right-thinking human being, should not allow the emotion of failure to ride them. They must find a way of overcoming. And for you to overcome, you must have a winner's mindset. But if you have a loser's mindset, it's rather unfortunate. The end result could be devastating. So there are many things that happens if you allow the emotion of failure to ride you. One of the things that happens is that we begin to have this fear of making mistakes. You see, they said the person who does not do anything does not make mistakes. So if you are involved in doing things, you must make mistakes. But because you have failed before, there is this tendency to refuse to continue because we don't want to make mistakes. And it's rather unfortunate because there is no way somebody who is doing things, who is taking action, cannot make mistakes. The only thing is that if you make mistakes, you find a way of, dancing around it and getting over it. Otherwise, it could be very, very unfortunate. Again, failure could lead us to begin to think that, look, after all, others are better than me, so what's the point? Continuing. we may just decide to give up because we have failed before, so we are afraid to continue. But that is not the best way. A winner, somebody with a winner's mentality, will want to continue no matter who's up. What the situation is. He will keep moving and see how he can overcome. Then there is this tendency for you to begin to, look for perfection before you do anything. You look at it this way, you look at it that way, you begin to criticize yourself. You begin to do something they call perfection paralysis. At the end of the day, you are paralyzed. You are not able to do anything again. Paralyzed mentally. You are not able to do what you are supposed to do because you don't want to fail. You want perfection. But it's not. Perfection is not the most important thing. Once you are doing anything, there is nobody who is perfect. That is one thing we have to have at the back of our mind. Otherwise, we will not make progress. Another side effect of failure is that whatever we are, each time we want to take action, we begin to look at the difficulties involved in such actions. We don't want to continue because we are always looking at the difficulties. If I do it this way, it could be very difficult to go. If I do it this way, it could be difficult. We're just seeing difficulties alone. At the end of the day, you don't move forward because you already have been paralyzed by fear of failure. But don't get paralyzed. Keep pushing. You are bound to make mistakes. There is no doubt about it. Mistakes will naturally occur. We are all human beings. If you don't make mistakes, then obviously you are not doing anything. You have to develop this winner's mentality if you want to overcome the fear of failure. What is the winner's mentality I'm talking about? Failure has given you a lemon. So as a winner, you have to change that lemon to lemonade. Failure is bitter, very, very bitter. It is lemon of life. So how do you now overcome? Just change your lemon into a lemonade. What I'm trying to say is that, and what people have said over time, is that for every problem that occurs in life, if you look at those problems very well, you will find one or two things that are good in it. Extract those good things and use them to your advantage. That's the best way to overcome failure. The best way to overcome fear of failure. So what I'm saying, in effect, is that life is not fair to anybody. Usually it gives most people the short end of the stick. It is now your responsibility to see how you can change your lemon into lemonade. See how you can change the bitter aspect of life into something better. Everybody that has a winner's mindset does that. But if you just sit down and do nothing and allow the emotions of failure to ride you, it will be rather unfortunate. Thank you very much for listening.